Hey guys, Matt from The Existential Man. Thank you guys for tuning in. Real quick, just wanted to give you, let you know that we apologize for the audio quality on this episode. You know, sometimes technology doesn't agree with us, and so we had some issues with some background noise and some noise creeping into the audio. So hopefully you can get over that and enjoy the episode. Thanks a lot. What is up, guys? Matt with The Existential Man here. Thank you for tuning in to episode 3. Today, we're actually going to introduce you to our new permanent co-host, Richard Santoro. Richard and I are going to be talking about some things, kind of introducing you to him, giving you a little bit of background about his life, where he came from, how he and I met, and kind of help you guys hopefully explore some things about yourself and some of the things that we discuss. So, if you want to catch a really good episode, stay tuned and follow along. What is up, guys? Matt from The Existential Man here. I got a really special show for you today. We're actually going to introduce you to our permanent co-host, Richard Santoro. Richard is a buddy of mine from college. We went to school together and met at school. Richard is an 8-year veteran of the U.S. Army. He was a combat engineer. Richard served 3 tours overseas, 2 in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan. Very smart guy, very motivated individual, the kind of guy that you like to bring around your family, trustworthy. But here's the creepy thing. He's got a Bachelor of Science in Digital Forensics and Cybersecurity, so don't let him around your computer. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you and introduce you to Richard Santoro. Richard, how's it going?
What's going on, man? How you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for joining me. Long time no see. How you been?
Man, I've been pretty good, man. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. All right. Anything you want to tell our audience now that they're going to be listening to us from here on out? So, I mean, it's not like you won't have anything to say to them in the future, but if there's anything specific you want to tell them, if like I fucked up your intro or your bio there, but
you did pretty good. I mean, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's pretty much me right now. So appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for joining me on this. Look, I think people were probably getting tired of listening to just me, even though, I'm biased. I think I got good things to say, but maybe not everybody out there would agree with what I got to say. So,
hey, everybody's got their own opinion.
Right. So, hey, man, look, I want to ask you a couple questions if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
All right. So, just kind of to help our listeners get to know you a little bit better and kind of get a little bit more familiar with who you are and your background. So, look, I know we told them that you served 8 years in the military. And one of the things that I talked about, you probably heard it in episode 2, the progress versus progress. And if you haven't heard it, go check it out. It's on iTunes or Google Podcast. Go check it out. 8 years in the military. What made you decide you wanted to join the military? Like what brought you to that? Because I know you and I had talked a little bit before. You were in college, you worked at FedEx, you did some other things before you joined the military. What was it that drove you to join the military?
Honestly, what drove me was, like you said, I worked at FedEx Ground. I was going to college. At that time I was young. College really wasn't my thing. I was like, I really don't want to do this. I wanted a career, something that I could see myself doing in the future. So I was like, I want to be able to be somebody when I get older, because I was younger when I joined. So I was like, I want to be somebody. So I was like, plus my dad was in the military. He did 21 years and, I was proud of him. So I was like, you know what, I might as well join the Army, just, it's a future, it's a career, it's a steady job, it's, something you can be proud of. So right. I was like, you know what? So I decided to join the military and, I ended up doing 8 years.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for your service. And if it makes you, hey, man, for what it's worth, I'm proud of you.
Appreciate that.
But anyways, okay. All right. So 8 years in the military, 3 tours. That's kind of a lot, isn't it? Like that's almost one every 2 years. And I know that back when you were serving, what was the average length of your tour? 12, 18 months, something ridiculous like that? So you were only home for like 6 months at a time, it sounds like.
Not necessarily. So my first tour when I joined back in 2007. My first tour, I left mid 2007. I did 15 months. Did 15 months in Iraq. Yeah.
All right.
And then my second tour, I did 11 months over there. And then my third tour, which was my shortest tour, I only did 9.
All right. Well, that's not too bad.
No, it wasn't too bad, but still.
That's a lot of time away from home and
it is.
What you're used to.
Yeah.
Well, shoot, man. I'm sure you saw a lot of things, dealt with a lot of things over there. Combat engineer. That's like one step closer to freaking EOD than everybody else, huh?
Pretty much. Yeah, we were the short end of EOD. So if we can blow it up, then we had to call EOD. So.
No, thank you. No, man, I got a lot of respect for those. I mean, that's the kind of job. It's like every time you go out, you're like, well, don't know if I'm going to make it back today. So I guess I better have all the rippets and and mac and cheese I could possibly get my hands on.
Oh, yeah, or the tiger drinks.
Better go out fat and happy, man.
That's it. That's all you can do.
Well, shit, man, I'm glad you made it back.
Me too. Appreciate
glad you made it back. For sure. So, all right. So, okay. So fast forward a little bit, did 8 years, combat engineer. You get out, probably thinking to yourself, what the hell else am I going to do with my life? Oh, yeah. now that I'm out of the military. So why hacking?
Not necessarily hacking.
Okay. Fair enough.
It's to prevent hackers.
Okay.
Cybersecurity. So you secure the cyber world. But
I know. You know I'm just messing with you, man.
I know. But honestly, I love technology. I grew up around computers and phones because, it started coming out when I got older. So, I kind of grew up with them, not like now, the generation now where they know everything about it. But, I had to learn as it grew. So I knew that, when I got out of the military, everything you try to do, everything's changing, but the IT world is always going to be there because the technology just from now and till the future, it's going to keep growing. Right. Like it's always changing. So there's always new stuff. So you have to stay up to date, but it's going to be like a stable job. It's job security.
Right. Okay. I get it. And I want to keep going on this real quick, but I got to touch on something you said earlier. Cause you had said that you and I were both born before cell phones really existed, before computers were, I mean, we would not be able to do what we're doing now with the computers that we had when we were growing up.
No.
not even close.
You had AOL dial. If somebody picked up the phone, it was done.
Those stupid little sounds. No. So anyways, but that was always a glorious sound because you knew that if it started doing that, you were getting connected.
Oh yeah.
And then you'd get your 30 days worth of emails that you haven't been able to check.
That's right.
All right. But for real though, we are the last generation that has experienced the best of the best times in this world. Like we got to learn what it's like to play outside and come home when you were called for dinner.
Oh yeah.
Our kids can't do that stuff now, man. It's
oh, they can't.
This world is a whole lot more unsafe and unstable than it used to be, which I don't know. Back when it wasn't about sitting in front of a computer playing video games or all this kind of not knocking what you do, like not knocking the cybersecurity, digital forensics. I know that's obviously a lot of time spent in front of a computer, but that that kind of goes in hand into being fluid and flexible, which we've talked about before, and changing with the times. It's less about can you be a physically can you do a job with physicality. Now it's all about flexing your brain power. And
exactly. So like you said, like nowadays, I mean, with 2021, I mean, if you notice how technology has changed because of COVID and stuff like that, schooling's online, everybody's using Zoom meetings and stuff like that to do schooling.
Hey, don't knock it.
I'm not knocking it, but I'm just saying everything is done online. It's easier to get hacked and everything else now because everything is done online. You do everything online. Your banking's online. Everything you do is online.
Right. But okay, so you know what? This actually brings me into a topic that I wanted to talk about. I was going to wait. I was going to wait, but because we're on topic, I want to talk to you about technology, right? Because you and I were both going to school for this. That's really how we met.
Exactly.
So I can't really say anything because I was going to school for, network security administration and all that.
Right.
So I'm over here giving you a hard time and I was the damn thing. But no. Okay. So this is something that there's two sides to this coin, right? So technology I want to talk about technology as a double-edged sword. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you've seen some of the ways that it can be used for harm just based on your training and your schooling.
Correct.
Like that. And then we see, you also touched on some of the ways that it can be used for good, connecting people over long distances. Case in point, you and me, we don't live in the same city, but yet we're able to still have a real-time conversation and be able to do what we're doing and connect with other people over long distances and over periods of time. So I want to ask, do you think that technology has made human connection better or worse?
That's a tough question to answer because in some way it has made it better because like you said, like we don't live in the same state, but we can still stay in touch like that and stuff like that. So it has made it better. You can keep in touch with people that you haven't seen in a while, friends I've made with. Actually, speaking of that, a buddy of mine that I was in the Army with actually got a hold of me on Facebook today and was like, "Hey, what's up? How you been?" And I was like, "Wow, I haven't seen this dude in like 4 years." So that was surprising. I'm not gonna lie, that was a shock. I was like, "Wow." So, but at the same time, not too many people go out and spend quality time and hang out like they used to. So it's like you said, it's a double-edged sword because you get to meet all these people that you used to have relationships with, friends, family, and stuff like that. But at the same time, you don't get that real time connection either of hanging out, being able to see them, get the emotions and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, case in point, we're talking about technology, and then my dad sends me a picture of a margarita that comes up on my Apple Watch and says Happy National Margarita Day. So apparently it's time to bust out the margaritas, ladies and gentlemen.
Apparently it is. 5 o'clock somewhere.
It's definitely past 5 o'clock somewhere. But anyhow, but no, okay. So technology, do you think we're better off or worse off overall?
Overall, I think we're better off.
Okay.
I think we're better off with technology because of the way things have changed over the few years. We need technology right now because of like COVID and stuff like that and how to get stuff done. So I think we're better off to have technology now.
Do you think, because I was talking to a buddy of mine at work the other day, I know what my belief is, and I'll talk about that in a second. But do you think that the world will ever operate the way that it used to pre-COVID? Or do you think the world is forever changed?
Absolutely not. It has forever changed. COVID has changed the world. Like, for real, like nothing will ever be the same, in my opinion. That's the way I see it. I'm not sure. I'm not an expert. I don't have a doctorate in it, so I don't know.
Okay, so
in my opinion, I feel like it's changed a lot, and it's probably not going to go back to the way it was before.
Okay,
that's just my opinion.
Real quick break for a public service announcement, ladies and gentlemen. The opinions expressed by either host, Matt Volkman or Richard Santoro, do not constitute any professional discussion or opinion. Guys, I can't do this. Look, this is just our opinions, okay? Like, we are not experts here. This is strictly just us riffing off the cuff. But I agree with you. I think that the way that business is done, I think the way that social interactions are conducted, I think the world is forever changed. I think that people were scared to do the virtual before, thinking that maybe it wouldn't work. There's going to be glitches in the system. Obviously, there's the cybersecurity concerns regarding it, protecting everyone's safety, especially when it comes to kids in school. But yes. I think that by necessity, because of COVID, it has pushed us faster and further with technology than anybody anticipated us being at this point.
Oh, absolutely.
In 2020/2021. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. But it's funny because I didn't like, I knew that when I selected the school to go to the network security analyst and advisor and administrator, whatever the hell the program was.
Yeah.
I picked it because I knew that the world was going this way. I don't think anybody foresaw. I don't think anybody could foresee that we were going to be where we are at now this time.
Absolutely not.
Because we're hyper reliant now on technology to keep us connected constantly. I mean, I have 2 cell phones. I've got, they issued me one for work because they want me to be able to be gotten a hold of 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just in case, which is, fortunately, I've not had anybody to call at 8 hours a night other than, a onesie, twosie here or there. But I mean, I feel like the point that we're at now, we will never go back to regular face-to-face. Okay, let me rephrase. We will never go back to having face-to-face business dealings and interactions be the default. I feel like everything will start as either digital or virtual. Contracts and everything being signed will continue to stay digital and virtual, because it can be done across time zones, across borders and things of that sort, where maybe there was some restriction before, and this eliminates a lot of that restriction. It makes it fluid, I guess, for a lack of a better term. It removes some of those boundaries that we were talking about, some of those roadblocks that we were talking about earlier. So anyhow, okay, sorry, I got off on a tangent there with technology, but it was something that honestly, it's something I was going to talk about in a later episode, but now that you're here and you're kind of the resident expert on it.
Resident expert. There you go.
Expert, folks. Not expert, just resident expert, because he knows more than I do, which is highly odd, I must say, because if you ask anybody that I hang out with here, they're going to tell you that I'm the resident nerd. So you are now crowned king of technology at the Existential Man, brother.
Thank you.
You are welcome. All right, moving on. Okay, so What? All right. So I got a question for you because this is I realize I'm asking a lot of questions, but I want to get to know. I want to get to know, and I want our readers to get to know. I know you and I have had conversations after conversations before, I moved and all that kind of stuff, about kind of the state of affairs, the state of our lives, the state of humanity and masculinity and all those kinds of things. But do you think that we as men do you think that the majority of men are living up to their full potential?
No, I do not think that most men are living up to their full potential, because us as men, we can do a lot, but we shy away from doing a lot because I think we have a fear of rejection and failure, because we're supposed to be these strong men, but we don't want to fail, because if you fail, you feel like you lose part of your masculinity. But at the same time, if you don't fail, you can't grow. See
well
what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, well said. I like that. I like that very much.
It's true. If you don't fail, you can't grow.
No, and you're absolutely right, because that's where we learn, right? So you learn 10 times more from failing, and this is not like a statistically proven number or anything. You learn 10 times more about yourself, about what to do, what not to do from failure than you do from success. Like somebody who has never known failure in their life, which, first of all, if you can show me somebody who's never met failure in their life, at least on some level, I'll give you $100. But if you meet somebody who's never met failure, they don't really have a whole lot of good to offer you. Like if a person was successful at everything they accomplished in life, then they are the luckiest person alive.
Oh, yeah,
what's that?
I said, and if they did fail once, the whole world would end, because they wouldn't know how to take it. They wouldn't know what to do.
Right. Because it's kind of like those kids it's kind of like the spoiled kid. Everybody knows the spoiled kid.
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't know the spoiled kid, you were the spoiled kid. Yeah. So if you don't know who the spoiled kid was in your school or in your class or growing up in college, or like wherever, you don't know who the spoiled kid was that got everything they asked for all the time. Nobody ever said no. That includes men or women or whoever. Like,
you were the spoiled kid.
You know who that spoiled kid was. And if you don't know who the spoiled kid was, you were the spoiled kid. Like, just deal with it. But that spoiled kid where the first time somebody said no to whatever they wanted, they were like, what?
Right.
Wait what? Nobody tells me no. Right. So, but yeah, I mean, like, I think that's a huge part of learning and growing, is learning how to graciously accept failure and find ways to look for the lesson in the loss. Because, so I talked to a guy the other day. I was interviewed on the Purpose Lab podcast with Dr. D.F. Arnold. Amazing guy. Damon's an amazing guy. And, we were talking about it, and he said something, and I've heard it before, but I really like it because it sums it up in a very, very short synopsis. There are no losses, just lessons, right? So if you don't fail, right. Well, and I think in episode 2, we talked about, we need to redefine what failure means, because the traditional definition of failure is not accomplishing a goal, not getting the girl's number, not getting that job, not passing a test in whatever. But you know what? My wife and I talked about this when it came to, taking the real estate exam, because we had heard that everybody that took it failed the first time. Okay. So if that's the case, take it. Let's take it. Let's, and if we fail it, let's fucking bomb the shit out of it. Because guess what? When we go back, we'll know how not to answer the questions that we bombed. And that's part of learning. Like that's, and I'm not saying you should go for failure, but I mean, like, if you're not striving to either succeed or learn, you're not trying at all, really.
Exactly. And that's one thing with failure is like, you're going to fail at something in life. It's inevitable. You will fail, but it's going to suck. It's going to hurt, but you can't let it drag you down. Like I failed, a couple things, you knew what I was going through and I failed. And I was a little, mopey, depressed a little bit, but I got over it. Like I was like, man.
Man. Okay. So let's touch on that because you said it, right?
Yeah.
When you invest time and effort into something, you are going to be somewhat, at least to even a minor extent, emotionally invested in the outcome. And so I'm not saying you shouldn't be disappointed if you fail. That's not what I'm saying at all.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I need to clarify that because I mean, and I'm not saying you took it this way, but somebody might. Like, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be disappointed in failure, but it is not the be all end all of the situation.
Exactly.
And kind of like you and I were talking about, it's like, okay, if everything goes smoothly all the time, how do you adjust? How do you plan? How do you like, what happens when something does go wrong?
Right.
You have to learn to be fluid in some situations. You have to learn to, as they say, shift fire or adjust fire, and kind of figure out how to overcome those obstacles. I don't think, my personal belief is that obstacles appear in your path to prove to yourself how bad you want it.
Exactly. Because if you fail the first time and you just give up, then you really didn't want it. You didn't want it at all. But if you try again and you fail and you still didn't give up, then deep down you want it. So you're going to keep pushing yourself no matter how hard. You got to try. You're just going to keep pushing yourself, until you do pass. But at that time, you're also learning a lesson because you're gaining more knowledge of that situation to be able to better yourself.
Right. And as you do go through those processes of adjustment, you become better as you make those adjustments. You become more suited for you become more suited for the goal that you're trying to attain to begin with. Right. Sometimes I think we leap before we leap before we look.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing because I think it's more important to take action and be proactive than to sit in this analysis paralysis. So I think to some extent, leaping before you look is okay. Understanding that there might be some pain along the way, but that's okay. I mean, like that's where our growth and that's where our learning comes from, is from some of that pain, be it physical, mental, or emotional. So in episode 2, we talked about leaning beyond the edge of our comfort zone. And that is part of like leaping before you look. Right. And so when you take this thing, like, so you and I were talking, we can take the police academy. We can take the military, for example. Military for me, because it's applicable to both you and I.
Yeah.
I thought about it, and then dropped the idea, and then went back and thought about it, and then dropped the idea and went back and I mean, so it's like, at what point was I going to just take action and get off my ass and do something about it? And that's what I ended up finally having to do. Is just like, okay, you know what? I have analyzed this situation to death, and I've determined that it's not going to be any worse for me on the other side. And this is something that I've thought about doing for years, probably the better part of a decade. before I actually
man.
Right. Well, hey, you didn't get caught. Listen, you went in early enough that you didn't get called pops or grandpa at
Absolutely
your basic
not.
training. So you know what? I was the wise one.
You're the wise one.
I was the wise one. And yet you're still older than me. Fancy
right?
That's all right.
Fancy.
But anyways, so there's I think that there's wisdom and there's maturity and there's grace in some of those opportunities to leap before you look. But then the maturity comes in knowing when that's acceptable versus when it's not. I think we do a lot of leaping before looking when we're young.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right? We do a lot of pulling the trigger before we've aimed when we're young. And the maturity part comes in taking some time to at least analyze the situation to know, okay, how do I minimize whatever pain I might end up feeling at the end of this thing? And hell, it might turn out all sunshine and roses at the end of it, but knowing what the risks are before you jump, I think that's a bare minimum for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to know the risks before you jump because you don't want to take on too much that you can't handle at the same time either. Right.
So, all right. So let's do this. I want you to tell me about the hardest lesson you had to learn in your life. Like a lesson that you learned the hard way. I know I'm putting you on the spot, brother.
Yeah, you put me on the spot. There's a lot of them.
Well, that's the thing is I have a lot too. So like I was trying to think of one that I could talk about, and there's so many that
there's so many lessons I've learned and the hardest things I've had to do. And I don't even know off the top of my head right now. Like, I'm not going to lie. That's just,
that's all right. I'll talk about, I can't talk about one specifically, but I will talk about a kind of a blanket class of lessons I've learned the hard way. When I was younger, no, I will talk about one specifically because I remember now. So when I first went to college, got out of high school, went to the University of Northern Colorado in Greeley, Colorado, go Bears, and joined my fraternity, Delta Tau Delta. When you go, okay, so the school had some arrangement with Wells Fargo Bank. Okay. And Wells Fargo, they open you a student checking account. Like it's tied to your university account. So tuition payments come out of that account, refunds go into that account, and it's all tied to the university. Like you're given one whether you want it or not. You get a debit card, you get a checkbook, and you get this checking account. Well, you can request at the same time a student credit card, and pretty much every student is given a credit card with a balance, like a minimum balance on it. So I get this checking account. Fine. Never had a checking account in my own name before, but I had a checking account. Well, I graduated high school when I was 17. So I wasn't technically legally able to open a checking account by myself until after I graduated from high school.
Gotcha.
Okay. So I opened this, like I got this checking account opened in my name. And while I think I went to go do something at the university branch of the bank, and they were like, "Hey, we noticed that you didn't apply for your student credit card." I was like, "What? Student credit card?" They were like, "Yeah, do you want to apply for your student credit card?" And I was like, what benefits does it give? Is like a cashback card? Like, everybody talks about the cashback card, like Capital One, no restrictions, your travel, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, what are the benefits? And they're like, well, low interest rates. It's an introductory card for students. It gives you a small initial limit so you don't overspend, blah, blah, blah. I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. So like they already had all my information because it was tied to my student checking account. So they ran the application and I was approved for like $600. I was like, $600. That's not a small limit. To me at the time, it was not a small limit. um, I was a broke college kid living on fucking dorm food and ramen noodles. Like, my favorite meal at the dorm cafeteria was grilled cheese and ketchup because everything else was like corn chowder and all kinds of like random. I mean, don't get me wrong. They had good cheeseburgers. They had good French fries. But I mean, like they didn't have like steak and mashed potatoes. It was, it was cafeteria food. High quality cafeteria food, but cafeteria food nonetheless. So I always went to the grill. Anyways, long story short, I get this student credit card, and I was pretty good with it for like the first 2 months, and then I think we were doing a beer run. I think something happened.
Of course, the beer run.
Oh, I know what it was. I think we were having I think it was our initiation party for my pledge class for my fraternity. And they were like, hey, let's go to the fucking liquor store. So we went to the liquor store. And I was shocked that I didn't get ID'd. I was 18 years old buying a bottle of Rumpelmints, I think, and like a 12-pack of beer. And that's where it started. And then it was like, oh shit, okay, I knew I could go to this liquor store. I could go buy booze. Well, turns out that if you don't pay your credit card, they close your credit card. And if you're over limit on your credit card, they also close your credit card. And if you're over limit on your credit card and it's tied to your bank account, they take the money from your bank account to pay your over limit on your credit card, and then they close your credit card. So, yeah. I mean, I think by just what I said there, most people can probably deduct what happened. But long story short, I had money in my checking account, but I didn't want to spend the money in my checking account. So I spent the money in my credit card. I was like, oh, cool. I'll pay this back later, and something happened, didn't pay it back. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was tuition or books that I had to buy. I didn't have the money to pay the credit card bill. So I didn't. And then they froze my credit card. And then like, I think I had more money deposited in my account from my job, which by job, I mean, I worked prior to going to college. I worked in my parents' family business for like the 5 years before I left for college, 4 years before I left for college or whatever. And they only paid me half of what I earned. The other half went into savings, and it was dispersed to me over the period of time that I was away at school while I wasn't able to earn a paycheck. And I mean, it was smart savings on my parents' part. I was always upset when I was younger because I was like, why don't I get all my money? But hindsight's 2020, and now I'm 36, almost 37 years old, and I'm like, shit, how do I figure out a way to do this with my kids?
Right.
Like, forced savings plan. Yes, call me the IRS. Yes.
Started savings a long time ago. I learned that too.
Right. Well, so anyway, so money had gotten deposited in my account from my parents because I'd earned it. It wasn't free money. And I think I knew it was coming, and I went to go spend it. I think I went to go buy another book that I needed for school because I didn't have it. And that was the reason why I asked for the money. And I went to go spend it, and it was gone. I was like, where the so I went into Wells Fargo, heated as hell. I was like, I went up and I was like, my parents just transferred money, blah, blah, blah. It's not in there. Somebody stole my account. I need to close my account, get a new account number, cancel my card, blah, blah. And the lady's like, well, let me look at your history. She pulled up my information. She's like, oh no, sweetie, your money was transferred to your credit card because your credit card was overdrawn. What did they over limit and overdue? And I was like, okay, well, how much was it over limit and overdue? She's like, well, you were with the late fees and everything like that. You were about $480 over limit. I was like, $480? Like, how come you guys didn't shut it off at the $600 limit? She's like, well, because it's tied to your checking account, which has overdraft protection. So we knew that we could draw from your checking account, but then the money was gone. I was like, oh my God, they're killing me. So I had to call and ask for a loan to buy the book, and I had to have them wire it to me so I could pick it up in cash so that the money didn't. Yes. So lessons learned the hard way. Guys, be smart with your money. Please be smart with your money. Matter of fact, let me give you a tip. Don't go over 30% or 40% of the balance on your credit cards ever. Ever. It will severely affect your credit. And you will need that, especially as things get more digital. You can't just go to the bank where, your local bank where you got a good friendly relationship with Bob the banker, because everything is done based on your freaking FICO scores and your credit scores. So don't screw it up. Take care of that shit. And if you haven't taken care of it up to this point, start taking care of it now.
Hard lesson learned that I just remembered. It is not easy to build your credit back up.
No kidding.
Yes. I got mine up now, but it took me a couple years.
Look, man.
Hey, another hard lesson learned. Me and you talked about this. So don't co-sign for nobody. I don't care who it is.
Unless you're married.
Not even if you're married.
Okay. You and I will agree to disagree on that. Because here's why I say this. So don't co-sign for anybody that you're not married to. And I say that because in most states, if you're married, you're going to end up responsible for the debt anyways. It doesn't matter whether
I don't know.
What's that?
So I'm not married, so I don't know. So
I know, but I'm just saying.
That's why it's my opinion. Even if you're married, don't co-sign.
That's fine. That's fine.
Might change if I ever get married. We'll see.
Well, that's the thing, though, is like if you're married, you're going to be responsible for the debt anyhow. So if you co-sign, it gives you the opportunity to build your credit at the same time that it builds your spouse's credit. If you maintain good payment history on the account, that's the key, is paying your shit on time in the full amount. If you let the account go into disrepair, or your spouse, whether you're co-signed or not, most states, because you're married, you become legally responsible for that debt. So, co-sign, because it might get you a lower interest rate. It's going to help you build your credit. If you're married, do not co-sign for anybody under any circumstances unless you're married.
Absolutely.
That's my 2 cents. Anyways, go ahead. So no, and this is the other thing too, Richard. So, and guys that are listening, like Richard and I have already had this discussion. We have agreed to be fully and completely transparent with you guys with all of the lessons that we've learned, because it's important for us. Like I've got no shame. I made the decisions that I made. I take responsibility for the decisions that I've made and the choices that I've made in life and the actions that I've taken. And Rich is, I can't speak for him, but I'm sure he's the same way.
I'm exactly the same way. It's my mistakes. I own up to them. I learn from them.
Right. And that's one of the tenets that we really, really live by here at the Existential Man. But the other thing too is we want you guys to have the opportunity to learn from some of our mistakes, learn from our experience, especially some of the younger guys that might be listening out there. If you're younger and you're listening, definitely write in, send us an email, go to theexistentialman.com and leave us a comment on one of our podcast episodes, or send us an email real quick at theexistentialman@gmail.com. We want to hear your story, man. Tell us the worst, hardest lesson that you've ever learned in your life. We want to know a little bit about it. We'll touch on them in another episode for sure. But real quickly, hey Richard, before we get going, so you and I talked about it. And the guys that have been listening the last couple episodes, you'll go back and you listen, but you'll always hear me say, and most people, even when I'm on the phone or like when I'm hanging up off of a phone call, I'll always say like, hey man, talk to you later. Take care. Right. So I have this concept of care that's a little bit different. I don't use the care definition. You and I talked about this.
Yes, we did.
We agree that it is universally and unilaterally applicable to all situations, including in dealing with yourself. So CARE is actually an acronym, and it stands for confidence, assertiveness, responsibility, and empathy. Okay. When you're talking about taking care of yourself, you need to have confidence in who you are. It doesn't matter who you are. You need to have confidence in it. If you are, it doesn't matter if you're, the owner of a Fortune 100 company who's got a beautiful trophy wife and wonderful obedient children, and you're making millions of dollars a year, or if you're a single guy that just graduated high school, that's never had a girlfriend, doesn't have a job, and really has no prospects in life, you got to be okay with that, because you have to understand everybody is in a position that they're in for a reason. And the guy that's got $1 million and's got a trophy wife, the dictionary definition of a trophy wife, anyways. I think my wife's a pretty good trophy personally, but it's got the dictionary definition of a trophy wife, wonderful, obedient kids, and making millions of dollars a year. Guess what? That dude still has fucking problems. He still has
problems than all of us.
Probably. You're probably not wrong.
I'm probably not wrong. In my opinion, the more money you have, the more problems you have.
Right. So be good with where you're at. Have confidence in yourself. Have confidence in the decisions that you're making. Okay? If you do what we've told you to do, and you at least understand the risks of the choices that you make and the actions that you take, have confidence in those decisions, right? The next thing, assertiveness. Richard, do you see assertiveness and aggression as the same thing?
No.
Okay. What is the difference then?
Assertiveness to me is where you, I don't know the actual definition of assertiveness, but I know.
I'm not looking for it. I want to know what it means to you.
Yeah. So assertiveness basically means you assert yourself, you get stuff done. Aggressiveness is when you have anger towards something or someone. Like if you're aggressive, you're more not passionate about what you want and stuff. You have more anger towards that. That is what aggression is. It's like you're mad about something or someone.
Lash out.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I like that. So and I look at it the same way, because I was talking to somebody, and somebody's like, I don't know. So me, I'm kind of a loud and boisterous person. Yeah. And somebody was like, man, you're really aggressive. Like you're an assertive person. And I was like, wait, which one is it? Aggressive or assertive? Because one I'm okay with and the other I'm not so okay with. Yeah. I don't consider myself to be an aggressive individual. I'm generally a happy, very I enjoy life. I enjoy experiences. I enjoy the process and the experience of things in life. But assertive, yes, I am assertive. I didn't used to be. But here's the thing, you have to know where your boundaries are, and you have to let people know where your boundaries are. If there's somebody in your life that is treating you a certain way that you don't find to be acceptable, it is perfectly okay and well within your rights to address that problem. Nobody can treat you any way other than what you allow them to do. I said this in episode 1. If you allow if somebody disrespects you, that's because you've allowed them to do so. You have to be assertive enough to say, look, this is not okay with me. But the other thing too is you need to understand that when you set that boundary, not everybody's going to want to follow that boundary. And that's okay. You can't expect that from anybody. You just have to expect that you're going to hold your boundary. And to me, that's what assertiveness is. Don't expect anything from anybody else. People are going to be who they're going to be, but expect that from you, right? Okay, so the next one is responsibility, right, Richard?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so responsibility for ourselves, responsibility for our choices, responsibility for our actions. And this is both good and bad. Give credit, take credit where credit is due, and also take responsibility for your shortcomings and for your pitfalls and as we talked about, for your failures. If you can't take responsibility for your failures, you can't learn from them. Because if you're constantly blaming somebody else for something, then, well, you don't mentally take that on you. You don't take that as an opportunity to grow. Like, well, okay, so-and-so caused it, so there's nothing I can do to make it better next time because it's their fault. No, bullshit. Like, you take responsibility for whatever part in you had in that instance. And then from there, you make the adjustments to make it better. And guess what? It ties into the next one, which is empathy. You got to have empathy with yourself when you do fail, because you're inevitably going to fail. If you haven't yet, you're going to. That's a natural part of life. And you have to be okay with the fact that it's going to happen. Forgive yourself for the mistakes that you make, because we are all human. I don't know, man. I can go on and on about this. I don't know, Richard. Like, you're here with me. You're my co-host. Like, you gotta reel me in sometimes, brother.
I know, man. I know. I'm trying. First time.
I know. I threw you into the deep end with this one, but I think it's been a good conversation.
Nah, it has. Yeah, you kind of threw me in the deep end. Like, whoa. But nah, it's been we had a great conversation. We talked about a lot, we learned a lot, hopefully the listeners out there learned a lot from our experiences, hopefully they can learn not to do the mistakes we did.
Right. Well, and the other thing too is, like, I think if there's anything that I want, I think if there's anything I want you to take away from this, if there's anything we want you to take away from this, is like, remember care. Okay. You got to take care of yourself first before you can be good to anybody else. Like, that same, everybody uses this analogy, but it's so universally acceptable, because anybody who's ever traveled on an airplane, they tell you, put your oxygen mask on first in the event of an emergency, and then place the oxygen masks on your kids. If you go to put the oxygen mask on your kids and you're halfway through it and you pass out because you got no oxygen, well, guess what? Now you and your kid don't have no freaking oxygen. So put your damn oxygen mask on first, and then put the oxygen mask on your kid. You're going to be all right. I promise you. So take care of yourself first. Confidence, assertiveness, responsibility, and empathy. Right? Did I miss anything, Richard?
No, you did not.
Any fine nuggets of wisdom you want to pass along to these gentlemen today?
Today, honestly, not right now. I don't have anything that I can really put out there right now.
All right.
So, sorry.
All right, man. No. Hey, look, like I said, okay, guys, just a real quick backstory. So Richard and I have been friends for a couple years now, but I reached out to him today and I was like, hey, man, I got a great idea. And so it was this afternoon around 2:00 that he agreed to be my permanent co-host. And then I was like, well, hey, what are you doing tonight? Let's record tonight. So I did.
That's exactly how it went. So he's like, oh, hey, choose a topic you want to talk about. So I'm like sitting here trying to think of stuff. And I'm just like, I don't know, short notice. I got 4 hours. I'm just like, I don't know.
Sorry about that.
That's all good. But I promise next time it'll be better.
No, well, hey, man, I think sometimes, so like you and I agree on a lot of things, but we also see things a little bit differently because you and I both have different perspectives, right? It all depends on the lens that you look at through the lens you look at your life through. And so your perspective is different from mine. I'm married with kids. You're single without. So some of your beliefs and thoughts and perspectives might resonate more with some of our single guy listeners. Mine might resonate more with our married guy listeners. And you guys, as the single guys, might learn something when we start to talk about families and relationships and things of that sort. And we can kind of learn from you guys when it comes to your situations and some of the things that you're dealing with in terms of today. So look, man, all of this is supposed to be mutually beneficial for both you and me, as well as, most important, our listeners out there. So, hey guys, take a look. Check this out. We're gonna call it a day and wrap this up. But I really want to thank Richard. I hope you guys welcome Richard to the show. He's going to be a permanent staple here with me at Existential Man, and we are now collectively the Existential Men. So we may have to rebrand and change, but I think we're going to keep it the Existential Man, and we will just collectively be the Existential Man. And but we really want you guys to reach out to us. Like if there's a topic that you want us to talk about or something that you want us to address, questions that you've got, anything like that, hit us up. The Existential Man at gmail.com. You can check us out on Instagram at the Existential Man, or Twitter handle is Existential Man with no E at the front of it, because they have username length restrictions, which is stupid, but just check us out. Check us out. We're on Facebook too. So guys, go leave us a comment, send us a message, do something, get it, come interact with us. Like we want to make sure that we're taking care of and talking about some of the things that you guys wanted to be talking about. Couple things coming up. We got a couple episodes coming up with some great interviews. So keep on the lookout for that. Make sure you subscribe in your favorite podcast player. We are on Apple Podcasts now. It's not iTunes. It's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio. What is it? Spotify. God, you name it, we're on it. Go find us. Go check us out in your favorite podcast player, man. And as always, you can find us at existentialman.com. EXISTENTIALMAN.com. So, guys, check us out. We look forward to it. We'll catch you on the next one. Take care.